Hello everyone, good evening. We are here again online with another Turkey Java community online event. And hello Oleg, thanks for accepting our invitation. Today Oleg will be with us. And Oleg is he's a community builder, Jenkins maintainer, developer advocate, working in Gradle, other stuff. And the topic is really nice today. We are going to have a presentation from Oleg about integrating Quarkus, Gradle, and WireMock together. And that will be really interesting, Oleg. That will be a really interesting topic. Again, thanks for accepting our invitation. Welcome to the Turkey Java community.
Yeah, happy to join. And yeah, appreciate the invitation. So in fact, I have never been to Turkey in person. I was supposed to have a presentation in 2020. So there was a conference on open hardware in Istanbul, but unfortunately it was COVID, so it got cancelled.
Yeah. So hopefully we will host you also in a physical event later on.
Fingers
in
crossed.
Istanbul or in Ankara, I don't know, or in another city. So we can start if you want. And again, thanks for being with us to all the attendees.
Yeah, thank you too. So one thing, I will post the link to the slides. Oh, okay. It doesn't quite work. I tried to post the link, but whatever. Okay, let's do the presentation then.
By the way, after the presentation, we can also share the link if you want.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Or you can just do it live. So
yeah.
I won't see the backstage at the moment because I'm presenting from my laptop. But
okay.
All links, questions, etc. are definitely welcome. And let's go ahead. Yeah, so thanks everyone. As we discussed today, I will be speaking on Gradle, Quarkus, WireMock. I will probably try to add a few more projects in the equation. So I hope it will be an interesting talk. And if you have any questions, just ask them in comments, etc. And we will try to discuss them during the presentation. So I will basically try to provide all the examples, etc. And I don't have a strict script for the presentation, so we can segue to other topics if you're interested. Okay, just one. So I'm active community builder. Actually, I'm rather a serial community builder because I spent last 10 years building various open source projects. If you know Jenkins, I'm one of core maintainers. I used to be on the governing board member. And my favorite area is developer tools, not just for software engineers, but also for hardware engineers, for documentation, etc., etc. So everything tooling is my favorite domain. And I do quite a lot of presentations on different topics. I experiment with the things, and I'm always happy to share. So for presentation, etc., you can already find it on my speaker deck. I just published it there, so you can follow the slides if you want. There are other presentations on WireMock, on Gradle, and other topics, so you can find all the information here if needed. This is just speaker deck on Nenashev. And yeah, if we need to return, let's do that. First of all, I'm traveling, so it's not my usual presentation setup. I'm actually at the Gradle Vault meeting. It's an event organized by Gradle so that all the employees can meet, chat together. We have hackathons, we have discussions, some planning sessions. I did a presentation today on Gradle's community roadmap, etc., etc. So it definitely keeps me busy. It's a nice event, but I'm happy to join in the evening when everyone is busy or already asleep, and happy to chat. In fact, I live in Neuchâtel, so it's a Swiss city, and one of the key points about the city that is basically the center of the Quarkiverse, because the Quarkus team is there. The Quarkus first release was launched from the Red Hat office, and basically there is still quite a lot of folks there. We meet from time to time in official and unofficial settings. So this is actually how I got introduced to Quarkus from very beginning of the project, and I find it quite exciting as a framework, etc. So happy to chat about it. And my journey in open source actually started with Jenkins, but you can see a lot of other familiar projects. What I work on these days is Testcontainers, Gradle, a bit of WireMock. I continue working on Jenkins and on a few CNCF projects. So there is a huge scope. And again, I'm happy to chat about everything. But today, actually, I will try to focus more on WireMock, Gradle, and Quarkus so that we can have the scope contained. And I joined Gradle just in January, and I'm working on Gradle build tool. So basically what used to be called Gradle, it's build automation for Java. And yeah, I spent most of my career with Maven, but I also like Gradle. There is a lot to chat, and if you want to share any feedback, happy to do that. Yeah, you know, we have the velocity, it's distributed build caching, and also at Gradle we invest a lot in developer productivity engineering or developer experiences. So basically it's knowledge sharing for anything related to developer productivity. And today's presentation rather falls in this domain, because the whole purpose of my presentation is actually show to you how you can leverage WireMock, etc., to do development for Quarkus. Regarding tools, so first of all, them of course Bash, etc. But for practical tools, I like Testcontainers, I like WireMock. I'm also experimenting with Microx. It's a cloud-native API mocking project, which is also available as Testcontainer. So these are my favorite tools at the moment, and of course, Gradle. With Quarkus, my history is a little bit complicated because actually, as I said, I started long before 1.0 release. I experimented with Jenkins on Quarkus. I was able to build the Jenkins file runner. It's basically a portable Jenkins pipeline engine. I was able to build it as a native image. It even worked for some pipelines, but of course it wasn't production ready in any means, but it was still a nice experiment. And at some point I also created a pet project, Fascinator. It's basically a bundling of Pika CLI projects as open fast distribution, and it also uses Quarkus to generate documentation, etc. So another pet project. And all of that was, I believe, in 2020, 2021, and then I got busy with other stuff, so it was a long pause. But when I joined WireMock, I actually started working with Quarkus again, because there was an interest to have integration with many tools and services, and Quarkus team already used WireMock, so there were quite a lot of opportunities. So basically now it's WireMock Dev Services, and also Quarkus, Gradle, and everything in the equation. So this is what we are talking about today. And my first presentation on this topic was at WireMock. So basically it's continuation of this presentation. I keep expanding it, adjusting to new features, etc. But you can find all the versions and recordings if you're interested. But what I definitely find for all the presentations I give, etc., that Quarkus is actually one of the best frameworks if you want to build a REST API or gRPC API. So with Java, Quarkus is one of the newest frameworks, and it was already built with best cloud native practices in mind. So there are extensions basically for every protocol, for REST servers, clients, for integrations with other providers. So it's quite handy, and for me, it's one of the best developer experiences. Though other tools like Micronaut or Spring, of course, they catch up, and they also provide more and more features for building proper APIs. By the way, when I speak about APIs, it's not just about REST API. There is quite a lot of different protocols, and basically everything that talks to another instance uses a kind of API. Hopefully it's documented. It might be GraphQL, it might be gRPC, just WebSockets. In cloud native space now, there are other ways, for example, custom resource definitions in Kubernetes or cloud events is basically event bus, and all of that counts as API. More importantly, there are two types of APIs. One is synchronous, and for synchronous, maybe you know Swagger, now Open API, so it's open specification, which is basically a REST API, but other protocols. But also there are synchronous APIs. So for example, if you use Apache Kafka, technically it's also API, but a synchronous one. And there is also a standard for that. There is also a foundation for that. Funny thing that Open API and Async API are two foundations under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation. So definitely there are quite a lot of opportunities for collaboration. And yeah, it's happening. With APIs in development, personally, I find that many projects, etc., don't have enough integration tests for API, because we always assume that projects will work with each other quite well. Sometimes we use frameworks like WireMock or Makita to just isolate interfaces and test that. But this approach is actually really complicated because it doesn't represent the real system and real communications. At the same time, if you know about integration testing, it's important. Of course, you saw a lot of stories about Apollo 13, etc. So we want to go into examples. But integration testing, it's definitely commonly accepted in the industry that it's important. At the same time, it's commonly accepted in the industry that it's quite difficult to actually implement it and work with it, because integration testing frameworks are quite complicated. Tests take a lot of time. On CI, we do not longer like nightly builds, etc. So classic integration testing approaches, they do not longer work. And there is demand in having something new. And basically, there are solutions for that. So your experience with integration testing, with system testing, greatly depends on which tools you use, etc. And this is actually one of the reasons why I started adopting test containers when it was just available. In fact, in Jenkins, we had our own implementation of test containers since 2015 or so before the project was even available. But basically, it was test containers, WireMock, Microx. They address a domain in the middle of modeling. So, of course, we have staging servers. It's still popular these days. It's quite accurate, but it's difficult to maintain, especially when you have databases, when you rely on data synchronization, etc. So it's possible, but we don't want that. And looking at the code level is just not reliable, because you don't test networking stack, and actually about 20% of the issues come from the networking stack. So there are two ways in the middle, and these ways are quite handy, and this is what I would suggest considering. So the first one is simplified containerized application. How many people do know test containers? I guess there were presentations at the community, right? Maybe not. And for modeling, etc., it's another type of modeling when you don't have real application, but there are also solutions. So this is what I normally talk about, and today I focus on WireMock. Just to provide some basics about API mocking. So in principle, it's very simple. You send a request, you get a response, and this request and response can have some definitions, like for HTTP requests, for REST API, it's just body, message. In response, you also get a code, like 200, etc. So it's quite simple. Basically, this is mocking and very principle, and there are many mocking tools available. My two favorite examples is WireMock. So basically, WireMock is implemented on Java. It also has native implementations. It can be compiled with Gradle VM. There are Docker images, test containers for different frameworks, and there is a dev service for Quarkus. For Microx, the story is a bit different. It's such that actually as a CNCF project, it has microservice, but also multi-service architecture. It's written in Golang. So, of course, it's a kind of stranger for the Java world, but at the same time, you can use them by using test containers. So they have a model for Java. They have official Docker image, which basically packages the whole Microx in a single container. So you don't need Docker Compose. You don't need other magic. It just operates as a common tool, which can be configured via Java API. And there is also dev service. So these are two tools I would really consider these days. There are other tools in the Java space, but for me, it's one of another when I start my new project. And the idea is for these tools, especially when combined with test containers, is quite simple. Instead of having this integration tests, etc., we want to provide a similar experience like for unit tests, but with frameworks that actually models the service, but does it fast. So if you have JUnit, you just write a common test. Everything under the hood is implemented for integration testing, but you don't need to worry about that. And the frameworks basically follow this model. They also offer a lot of advanced features. So it's not just if then else. There is dynamic templating, fault injection, record playback. So all of that, ask me during or after the presentation. I will be happy to expand, but right now we go to examples. And both tools, Microx, WireMock, they have quite a lot of integrations. For us, of course, it's more interesting to know integrations in Java. And in Java, we actually have quite a lot of integrations. So, for example, not just with Quarkus, there are Micronaut solution, there are DSL adapters for Kotlin, for Groovy, and there are libraries for Spring Boot and other major frameworks that actually make the development easier. And the same for Android. There is quite a lot of tooling there and quite a lot of tooling for other platforms. Today, we mostly talk about Quarkus. Does anyone need introduction to Quarkus? Because I don't have one here, and I think that probably just a quick tour. If you don't know what Quarkus is, it's one of basically frameworks that targets cloud-native Java deployments, basically really fast initialization. There is quite a lot of capabilities for that, including build time, configuration. Also, it can be compiled to a native image with Gradle VM, and there is a lot of capabilities, extensions. I'm not going to delve too much.
Oleg, by the way, if you want, we don't need to go into details for the Quarkus. We had also sessions related to Quarkus, but it's up to you.
Okay, so I was just giving references if you're interested, but check them out. So for WireMock itself, so since we switched to the web interface anyway, so there is WireMock Dev Service. So this Dev Service was created just half a year ago or so. It was recently released as a 1.0, maybe in December. Now it's version 1.3. And the idea is quite simple. It started as an extension so that you were able to develop with Quarkus and actually have it exposed for integration tests, etc. But now you can see that it's called Dev Service. So Dev Service in Quarkus is a new capability which was introduced maybe half a year ago or so. Basically, the idea for if you do development, sometimes you need to use local development environment, external ones, and need it in a transparent way. So Quarkus team created a bunch of dev services. They created APIs, etc. And you can see that there is quite a lot of implementations created by the Quarkus team, and also some implementations created outside, so including WireMock, Microx, etc. So it's actually a recent update because we worked with Oleg to actually have this integrated, and we worked with Quarkus team. So this extension is created by Christian Berger, and it's quite straightforward. So the idea of this extension is that you can do development, and when you need to mock APIs, etc., it can be done transparently with WireMock and other services. And just to show you a few examples before we actually go there. So it has quite a lot of configurations, but basically you can enable the dev service after adding dependency. So you just include it either in Gradle or in Maven. After that, you can configure it if needed. And then you can basically write a few resources that would leverage WireMock as a service. So this is what was created long ago when it was an extension, when basically a library for Quarkus. You were able to just write a test that would use WireMock with automatic injection, etc. But it was a kind of previous implementation which was quite simple. And now with Dev Service, you actually have a lot more flexibility. So I do have a few examples, one from Maven, one for Gradle. So today I will go for Gradle one, but for Maven, you can just check it on the WireMock GitHub organization. So if you could go to this example, again, I don't want to show too many slides today. Let's mostly focus on how it looks like. Is it big enough?
Yeah, a little bit zoom will be better, I think.
Okay.
If you can, yeah, that is good.
Yeah, after that it becomes a complete mess. Okay, so basically this is a demo which is public. You can check it out. And the idea of this demo is very simple. So it includes Gradle plugin for Quarkus, WireMock Dev Service. And the idea is that when you do development, you have an option. One of the options is actually connect. So in Quarkus, you have multiple environments. Standard ones are dev, test, and production. And when you use these environments, you have custom configurations. And dev services, they can be configured to use different sources of information and different behavior modes depending on this profile. So this is what I leverage in this extension. I will show you more code later. But if you go to Quarkus application properties, here you can see that what we have. We have
Oleg, can you make a little bit zoom again? It will be perfect.
Here too. Okay. Yeah, just a second. I will just where it is. Accessibility, page size, font, right? Is it better?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Okay. So basically, in this demo, does anyone use Hacker News? So yeah, Hacker News is just something. Well, it's super popular in the US. It's not very popular in Europe, but basically, it's a very, very basic version of Reddit or another platform. It has quite a lot of specifics, but basically, it's a news board, and you can find a lot of the things. And of course, this news board is supposed to have API. The problem with this API that while it exists in principle, it's not stable. So basically, they have an API hosted on Firebase. It's basically API builder for databases, and it's not always stable. So if you want to use this API provider in your integration tests, most likely they will be failing half of the time on CI, on local environment, and it's not very reliable. So what you can do with Quarkus Dev Services is pretty much the same for test containers, for other services. You can configure your implementation differently. So here, for example, in dev environment, what I see that instead of Hacker News, I would be using a local host. And actually, this local host is provided by Quarkus Dev Service. So when I have developer environment, I enable the service, enable automatic reload for the resources. I say from where I take the mappings. And there are also additional configurations like global response, templating, which I do not need. And that's it. So then when I develop, there is a JSON definition. So this JSON definition basically defines responses and logic, which I will be using in WireMock. So basically, the idea is to list a few requests, updates, and basically define what we would be responding. So for example, here, it's old example. So here we send a request for a particular story, and it says that WireMock posted about the WireMock and Atomic Jar partnership. There is a blog post, etc. So it's totally legit API. This blog post doesn't exist in the reality. And also we can retrieve best stories, information for users, etc. So this is what WireMock handles. Again, if you're interested, I can expand more on WireMock features, etc. But today it's rather an example. Also, test containers for C++. Happy to chat, but definitely not a topic for this meetup.
Oleg,
yes.
Can I ask a question for this
sure.
JSON, by the way, JSON file?
Yeah.
Are you creating from scratch, or can we just create from a Swagger document or YAML or from API specifications?
Yeah, so for this file, actually, it's a really good question. So if you go WireMock itself, it has its own format. Now there is ongoing work on new Open API definition. So I did a presentation at API Days December. So basically, the Open API community is working on Open API 4, which will be so it's called Project Moonwalk. And basically, this project, once fully implemented, it will relieve the need in custom formats, because currently with Open API 3 definition, it's basically impossible to have mocking definition, behaviors, etc. So all the context is here. But a long story short, for now, you actually have external definition. And this definition was created by WireMock. Big Rocks has another definition format, etc. But these tools have a capability of importing open API. So if I go to WireMock.io, it's basically company blog. There is a blog post I wrote, I guess, last summer, which is about importing WireMock definitions from open API. So it basically explains how to do it using WireMock Cloud, which is a free service, free tier service, and you can use it to basically take any APIs. So there are portals like APIs Guru that has a listing of APIs. We used these portals to create our own repository for WireMock templates, and it's a good starter point if you want to import existing open API. So by following these steps, etc., you can use WireMock, and you can see that it's actually Hacker News definition, etc. So yeah, so basically what I'm presenting today, and you can generate WireMock definitions. And you can test it, and then you can import it for WireMock. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Yeah, so basically you can see it here. And yeah, let's go back to our slide. So yeah, this is a JSON. It's very simple. So it's not, there is no dynamic logic, there is no microscripting. So WireMock is quite feature rich in this regards. And how it looks from the Quarkus application side. So probably I should just show how it looks in the UI. So you will understand why I'm quite humble about showing UI, because I didn't really bother to have it for this demo. I'm just trying to remember, yeah, on the first attempt. Okay, so basically this is the same repository. So in Quarkus, again, you can use Maven or Gradle. So in this case, I'm using Quarkus plugin for Gradle. It basically has almost the same behavior. Yes, it has a lot of customizations to support some features like Gradle build caching. Now there is ongoing work on configuration caching. So basically, Gradle team cooperates with Red Hat to make it more efficient or to stabilize it. So config cache is a feature which will be released in Gradle 9 by default. And also, there is quite a lot of things for live reloading, but in principle, everything works. So if I go to localhost 8080, so basically this is an application that is provisioned by Quarkus. And you can see that it's basically Quarkus Hello World Starter setup. So I haven't bothered creating UI. If you take a if you take a demo for Spring Boot, etc., we have a similar demo. There we have fancy UI created together with Testcontainers team, with Oleg Live. But here, yeah, I just go to this API, and basically it doesn't work because why? Not found, status 404, REST client. Yeah, that's actually a really interesting result. I don't know why it happened. And I think that we actually broke the caching because here, so let's see, because I definitely need to rebuild the project here because some bits with build caching, etc., are still not very stable. So it's my theory why I got such weird result, but let's see. No. So let's see whether it just doesn't connect or whatever, because I assume that it might be somehow related to WireMock and its configuration, so we can troubleshoot it as we go. Okay. As you can see, demos sometimes go sideways. So here in our profile, what we have basically a setup that has dev service enabled. We have a stub, which I haven't modified, so supposedly it works. Yeah, I'm just double checking because I did some modifications. So I have no idea what happens. But good news is that when you use Quarkus, we can actually try troubleshooting it. So now you will have a demo of live fixing for the demo. Let's see. Okay, so what we see here is that basically we have Quarkus starting. Here, basically, it launched the service listening on the 53737 port. We also have live coding activated. We have all the extensions loaded. You can see there is not that many of them, mostly for JSON handling, etc., for REST APIs. So supposedly it's okay. So let's reload the page. Go here, and still we get no response. So let's see what we can do, and meanwhile I will show what we actually have in this interface. So now with WireMock being an official dev service, we can go here, and here you can see, so here we can see just configuration for WireMock dev service. We can do continuous testing to see whether our integration tests and Quarkus pass, and we can use it for troubleshooting. So here, again, since we do not exactly plant live demo, so here in this setup, we also have test definitions. So for example, there is integration test for Quarkus. It's disabled because now there are runtime conflicts. When you use with Gradle, with Maven, it works perfectly fine. And here we have a bunch of tests like that. They're quite simple. And what Quarkus actually allows in dev service mode, etc., you can rerun these tests. And here what you can see that basically hello endpoint works. So basically it's operational in principle. So the stop endpoint we have here, so it's greetings resource, which basically on hello says you hello from REST easy reactive. So that works. That's a good thing. So basically Quarkus itself works quite well. And we can actually continue and see what happens in our best stories, which is another integration test. And here we basically send a request, but instead of code 200, we actually get 500. And I'm afraid it's all we get here because something is definitely going wrong, but I cannot say what exactly is going wrong for this from this configuration. But we know for sure that basically what I tested just 1 hour ago doesn't longer work, which is quite a great thing. And we can continue looking at what happens. So let's see. I will stop the Quarkus again. And here, so firstly, I need to check what exactly the version I'm running. Because it's an old version, and this is an old version with old version of Quarkus, because I also wanted to do some security scans. And let's see what else we can do with Quarkus. So first of all, if development mode doesn't run, let's just try to do Maven style clean build. Quarkus build, okay. So again, here we have some dependency on caching because Quarkus does its own build caching, Gradle does its own build caching. So some bits may be not aligned, but let's see. But basically the build goes quite well. So now we just run test and test. Again, everything is cached. So we don't get anything specific, even if we know that production application doesn't work. But basically what it says to us, that it's not related to build issues, because basically the build is the same as before, no need to rebuild, no need to retest, but it doesn't work anymore. So I disabled build cache. Did I? So yeah, it should be like that. That's interesting. So basically, it's not a Gradle cache. So from Gradle cache perspective, it looks pretty fine. So we can now try to clean Quarkus. So it's not clean. Does anyone remember what is the command? So DevRel.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay, maybe just build and test. So you can see that it basically triggers Gradle itself, so we didn't get much. But definitely something is completely wrong with caching. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how to address that, except doing desperate things like wiping the entire cache. So if you use Maven, you shouldn't hit these issues. Gradle plugin is still experimental. We are working a lot to stabilize the thing. What? Does it use magic cache somewhere? Okay. Yeah, I'm just deleting everything because again, I really need to retrigger the build, and looks like with this combination, caching doesn't quite work. So let's do it again. Okay, now it at least it builds something, and still there is nothing tested, right? Okay, now it runs the test. So apparently, due to reasons unknown, when you do not specify when you specify build test, it basically ignores the test. So maybe it was the real issue, not the cache. And here, so we get basically the same as we discussed. So now we have everything in the log, and let's see what happens there. So in the test, we see that basically WireMock instance starts at port 8081, which is kind of weird to be honest. Oh no, it's Quarkus starting on this port. And here we have a lot of things dumped by Quarkus, but basically the service is just not found when we send a request. And we don't have anything else to troubleshoot here, right? So let's see. WireMock. So WireMock service has started, and by default we don't have any logs exposed. So it means that WireMock itself thinks it's okay, but at the same time it's definitely not okay. Okay.
That get best stories method is from the hacker news, right?
Yes, it should be, because yeah, we have hacker news resource definition in Quarkus, and here basically what you see that we have a service to be mocked, so it's automatic. So basically, depending on the configuration, we have different endpoints, but yeah, there are best stories. There is a JSON, and sorry, there is item retrieval, user retrieval, and basically all of them goes from the REST API REST client service, which basically Hacker News API server in our configuration. And depending on the configuration of application, it will be one server or another server. So unless something goes completely wrong, it should work. Quarkus WireMock Dev Services port, it's as it should be. But yeah, the assumption is that due to reasons unknown, the port isn't propagated properly. So we can try it again. Let's see. But yeah, by now I'm also puzzled because even if I plant the mistake, I didn't plant this mistake. So let's see. We use the recent version of Quarkus service. We use quite old version of Quarkus itself, 3.3.2. So we can probably just update a little bit. Maybe it will help. Because while I was doing this demo, and just a second. So we will let Quarkus handle it. Meanwhile, I will show you why actually I downgraded to the old version, because I wanted to actually do some new Gradle features which we just released for pipelines. So now we have dependency submission action, which actually builds proper Gradle dependency tree and submits it to GitHub security. So I created old demo just to verify that basically issues reported for Quarkus, etc., they actually get discovered for evaluation. And this is why I downgraded to old version months ago. So maybe it's actually the root cause, because I didn't fully test on this version. So maybe if we take a new version, it actually works well. Let's see. Or maybe it's just a new glitch in the plugin, because just a second. Oh, now we're building. So basically, build and test phases, the dependencies are not discovered properly with the plugin. So seriously, that's so basically here we can see that basically is even without no. So basically, I guess that this flag is actually not propagated down the Quarkus plugin, because the Quarkus plugin invokes Gradle again, and basically the things do not work with version I've taken. But let's see whether it actually works, at least now. Let's see. Yeah, we can see here that the port is actually okay. So what we can verify now, yeah, I'm basically going to break everything in the demo, but yeah, if you go to the service, you can see that basically it's a WireMock available. You can have a lot of administrative interface, or we can go to our best stories JSON. Okay. There are no stub mappings in this instance. Now we know what happens. So basically, it failed to load the stubs. And basically, now we actually have a clue of what happens there, because it's not Quarkus, it's not Gradle plugin. So it's just because WireMock really doesn't start. And for WireMock, we actually have a way to do that. So again, I'm going to our documentation, because I don't remember a thing about administrative interface. But here in the administrative interface, if you take specification, you can we can actually have a bit of system commands, and yeah, basically even while running as a Quarkus Dev Service, we can check what are the logs, etc. And do we have log exposed there? No. Okay. So get also, but yeah, this is basically what we already did. So it won't actually provide us with anything right now. But yeah, we can still have a check applied, I guess. Yeah, I'm just experimenting, because again, I didn't expect us to be in this problem, but WireMock doesn't load the configuration. And literally the only change I did here is nothing. Yeah, really nothing. So due to some reasons, it doesn't load this file. What we can experiment with at the moment, we can give it another attempt, because we have live reload enabled. So for example, I pass the new version of this file, and Quarkus should locate the changes. So when I refresh the interface, it should actually do live reload for our service. If it does, maybe it actually starts working. No, it's not. And here's basically a very legit question that every developer would ask, is why don't we get WireMock logs here? And to be honest, I have no answer to you, because this is how it's configured at the moment. I believe it should be dumping the logs somewhere to the file, but by default, it should be also streaming them. in Quarkus, but they don't appear. So I basically watched the whole demo, right? I did. So what we do at this point? Do you want to take a look at Maven 1? We still have.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So again, what I was presenting is totally experimental. So I kind of understand the reason what happens. They basically, so basically we do not have WireMock is not starting in this setup, but I have no idea why it's not starting. And my next step is actually debug and see why it doesn't even stream logs in this case. So while I'm happy to continue that investigation, I'm not very sure that it has any relevance to the subject of today's presentation. So yeah, let's see. Okay. So here, yeah, again, I don't remember what are the calls, etc. But let's start from a simple one, just starting the dev service. Thank you. So basically in the repository, the wrapper is not executable. It means that I was doing the demo on Windows the last time. So let's see. Well, this is a part every Maven user likes, right? So while it's building, I will basically finish a few items on the slides. So as you could have seen, so Quarkus plugin for Gradle, we have started. It has some glitches here and there. I'm not sure what exactly happened today because just 1 hour ago this demo was working fine. But yeah, all basic Quarkus features they're supported, including developer environments, including live reload, etc. And basically even Quarkus Dev CLI should be able to run with it perfectly fine. And then, so Quarkus plugins is basically the same as Maven 1. So it's, is it still downloading? No. But yeah, basically, just to finish with the previous demo, so you can see all the information here. So it's nothing specific. In Maven, we use bombs. In Gradle, we use enforced platform, which is available, so you can pin all the dependencies. And again, it's supposed to work, but it didn't. So let's figure out what happens next time. Let's switch to our plan B, and our plan B is actually Maven. So for Maven, it's everything is the same. So it's basically the older version of the same demo. And for this version, we have this Hacker News setup, and here you can see that it actually works. So you click here, it sends you to best stories, and these best stories are supplied by Hacker News. And if we go to the configuration, let's see what the version we have here. So here you can see that it's an older version, I believe, of the configuration. So this is a version which still had pinned port. So it was one of the blockers for the dev services, but it already has reload and other bits. And what we could do, so now it just returned the Hacker News API server because it comes from developer profile. And if I just stop this application, so if I stop this application and we run in production, it's not like that. It's Quarkus run, right? Yeah, it's Quarkus run. Not. Again, I don't remember all the commands, but this is why we have Quarkus CLI, because it should be able. Okay. This version of the Java runtime only recognizes client. Seriously? Oh yeah. Maybe it was actually a problem. Could it have been a problem for WireMock too? Because one of the reasons is so in Gradle you actually have platform dependencies. So in my Gradle configuration, you might have seen that I was using basically provider. So here, just was I? Yeah. So basically, I was using explicit Java definition, and Gradle can use tool chains. So basically, most likely, it's one of the root causes because it was actually just using wrong version to run WireMock, which doesn't longer support 11. So let's say it should be global 11, global 17, right? Oh. 70. Yes. So I guess now I know what was the problem with Gradle. So it was just not having proper Java version in the environment. And let's see. Seriously. Okay. So I don't know what happened on this laptop, but I guess that GenF doesn't longer propagate the environment correctly. It's a known issue for the MacBooks, but again, it explains everything because I was trying to run WireMock on Java 11, so it didn't start in this configuration. So the demo I'm showing for Maven, it uses older version, so it should be running on Java 11 well. So which version do we use? So let's just close Gradle for now. So here in Maven, we use older WireMock version, so it should be running on 11. Where it is? Oh, right, it comes from extensions. So basically, WireMock, WireMock extension for Quarkus. So here we use version 1.0. It uses Java 11 compatible version, so this is why it actually runs. We still have just 10-ish minutes until the end, so I won't be recycling the Gradle one, but a little bit later, I'm actually happy. Check out the repository. I will fix this version mishap. Well, actually, if you have proper Java 17 environment, it should work out of the box. Most likely, it was whatever system update on my laptop that actually broke everything. Well, I restarted the laptop before the presentation. So yeah, does it work? Yeah. So what I wanted to show to you is that you have this tab. If you can modify configuration files, etc., here you can actually get the input right away. So test, resources, hack, and news. Here, if you modify these templates with newer versions, they get automatically updated. So basically, you can do live development in Quarkus with WireMock. When you have this configuration, you can modify. When you have Java code, including all APIs definitions, we have live reloading by default, so you can modify all of that. And also with Quarkus, you can actually make quite a lot of other changes, including what we unplannedly tested, this integration tests and resource tests. So basically, this is also using extensions, but with test profile. So if I just run test, maybe it should also work. Correct. Yeah. Resume testing. Oh, address already in use. And this is again because we use an old version here. So Quarkus extension for WireMock 1.0 didn't support random ports. So basically here the port is hard-coded. So when you run in development environment, the test will fail. So basically I botched almost everything in this demo. But if you just check this one in my repository and run it on proper Java 17 environment, it should work quite well. So just for better experience, follow the recommendation. Don't follow my screen share. Okay, so
we will share the repository about that you share, so everyone can just check over there.
So basically, it's not a fault of Quarkus plugin, etc. It's just a problem of my environment, which somehow switched to Java 11. And as you might have seen, GENV doesn't longer work. And I know why, because there is no issue for GENV on MacBooks. And for me, solution is actually quite simple. I develop on Windows and Linux. But here on this laptop, I am doing demo, and I wasn't ready for that. Okay.
No problem.
So I actually presented quite a lot of different Quarkus features when we were trying to troubleshoot it. But key takeaway that if everything works normally, you should be able to see logs for WireMock. You should have all these automated tests, troubleshooting, and for newer version of Java, etc. It actually works quite well.
Can you open the previous slide?
This one
includes the test file. No, the test one. So just to connect WireMock annotation will be enough to use the WireMock, right? Here.
Yeah, it's older approach, but you can also do that. So basically, what you can do. So for test, you say I need to connect WireMock, and basically WireMock will be injected automatically. Then you can see that there is also some asserts, etc. So it in this version, it comes not from WireMock itself, but there is another library, Quarkus WireMock test. So in a recent version, it's easier to use it, but you include it with a test scope, and you also get all the asserts, etc. That's quite handy for verification. And again, so for example, if I stop that, if I just run the test, I think that this time it should work. Right. On this laptop, there is no even extension. So I can just run Maven test. So hopefully, at least this time, I get success without something failing. But let's see. So this is a test that it doesn't. So since I stopped the environment, everything works pretty smoothly. So the test gets executed, everything gets provisioned. So this is actually a success scenario I was about showing most of the time today. But so this is how you define integration tests. And yes, depending on your environment, whether it's test, whether it's developer and production, it's all defined by this configuration file, and you can have different options of how they behave. You can actually have your own profiles, but this is quite handy. You can also see that there is login, etc. So I guess this is one of the reasons why WireMock doesn't get mapped. So since it's not starting, it cannot actually update the login configuration. So basically, it goes silent. So yes, still I hope you got at least the idea of how it should work, etc. And just to provide examples, so we actually working with Quarkus team to have develocity applied, to have Gradle plugin stabilized. As you can see, there is quite a lot of things to be done before it's fully stable, reliable, and any feedback is actually welcome. So everything I watched today, it's not related to the Gradle plugin. It should work perfectly. It's my own environment. And as you can see that basically WireMock is already available as a dev service. It keeps evolving. There is new release which was shipped recently, and actually feedback would be really useful. One of the things that I have in mind, so now WireMock operates as a runtime. So this again a reason why I failed with Java environment, because normally I would use test containers, and test containers are compatible with Java 11, so it would be quite transparent for me. But in this case, we got into these glitches, and one of the issues, one of the things I really want is that WireMock actually runs with in a test container or in a Docker image. So we have WireMock Docker, which is fully capable of that. So you can find the examples here. There is quite a lot of documentation. And also there is test containers. So for test containers, if you go to models, you can see that there is actually a WireMock model with examples. So we could use the same model as a part of Quarkus Dev Service, because by default, most of Quarkus Dev Services actually use test containers under the hood, specifically to evade all these environment issues. In this case, you can see that it's not exactly like that, and yeah, things do not work perfectly. So for me, one of the reasons is switching to test containers, not just stability, it's also actually support for gRPC and other extensions. Because again, when you run the component locally, whether it's a dev service or not, you do not actually get to include additional dependencies. And for example, we have a gRPC extension, which also uses protobuf definitions that get recompiled every time you upload a new one. So it has to run in the Docker image. And once we have test containers integration, I think that it would be quite handy. So if you have any questions, so there is Quarkus Zulip chat, there is also developer productivity engineering on Gradle community Slack, there is also WireMock Slack. You can use any of these resources to ask questions. And again, my suggestion that if you're interested, try out this demo. If you have stable environment, it will actually work quite well for you.
By the way, Oleg, I just want to highlight one thing. I just see shift left approach on the presentation in the first pages. Yeah. So that is really important to, I think, implement the integration tests also on the CI pipeline. So WireMock or it will be really useful in order to implement that one. Thanks for the approach, showing that one.
Yeah. That so WireMock really test containers, I would say that test containers is probably even more important, because WireMock is again it's API mocking tool. It's super handy when you want, for example, to emulate a service that it doesn't exist yet. So basically what I presented today, you can do co-development of the server side and client side in Quarkus by using WireMock as a kind of definition that you can expand. But if you have an implementation of the server which can be put in a container, you can just use test containers. And for some types of applications, let's say databases, just makes no sense to do WireMock for a database. Instead of that, you use existing test container for PostgreSQL, run with it, same for local stack, etc. There is quite a lot of test container models and extensions. Many of them are now being adopted by Quarkus team. And hopefully later we will have a kind of generic dev service that actually allows to configure any of them. Yeah, it's quite complicated, but I think it would be technically possible.
It's good to see that approach also. So thanks for the presentation, by the way. Thanks for your time also.
Yeah, thank you.
And hopefully we can also host in a physical event in Turkey, by the way, in Turkey.
Yeah, definitely. Physical laptop. Oh, sorry, physical event. I come with my laptop, which is on Windows, Linux, dev containers, and I show you how modern development is done. It's not GNF anymore.
No problem. By the way, I think it's useful also to see the approach, the methodology, and also how we are just implementing the WireMock in Quarkus. So that's good. Thanks for the presentation, Oleg.
Okay, thank you too.
So after the event, when we close, can you just stay a little bit to take a photo? Okay. I think we can just the time is up, so we can just say thanks to everyone, and thanks Oleg again for being with us.
Thanks everyone, and again all the information there. We'll probably publish a recording that works as a separate one tomorrow. Let's see. But thanks everyone.
Also, we will share the links that you showed, the repo, the other stuff, the speaker deck link also. But they can just directly reach from your account also. So there are lots of presentations in your account. So
but at least you got live troubleshooting, and now you know that basically every demo can go sideways. But actually, I find Quarkus quite handy in terms of troubleshooting. But in the case of WireMock, it definitely relied on the service actually starting. And with the wrong Java version, so WireMock didn't even start to put a log, but it's somewhere under the hood.
Exactly. So thanks everyone. Have a good night. Good again to see in another Turkey Java community event.
Yeah.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.